in narrative dystopias is if you say anything against the government, God forbid.
No,
But
no,
here
no,
it's
no, now-
literally just supporting your country. Your country defenestrates you.
Well, look at it this way.
Okay.
Suppose the UK was under occupation by a foreign power right now.
Yeah.
What would that foreign power, what symbol would it fear the most if it was under occupation by a foreign power?
Fair. Yeah. Yeah. Like, so France, when it was occupied by the Axis.
By the Axis, if you had a French flag.
Flew a French flag. Yeah. Okay.
You're immediately going to jail, being detained, being isolated. Certainly a government wouldn't punish people for flying its own flag. So if the government is punishing people for flying the British flag, what conceivable reason could it have to do that? Oh, that's not who's in charge anymore.
It is occupied. Oh my gosh. Wow.
Would you like to know more?
Hello, Simone. I'm excited to be here with you today. Today we are going to be talking about a growing movement in the UK in which people are raising English and British flags. So the Cross of St. James and the Union Jack all over the UK. The government is, of course, freaking out about this, calling this a hate movement.
But it's the government's flag.
Right, but it's a hate movement. So it's such a hate movement that one guy, he was complaining. He made a video, and I'll post the video here so you can see that I'm like not exaggerating. It is a mild video just being like, why are there all these Palestinian flags all over our town?
Yeah, it's not Palestine.
They go to his house and they arrest him.
What? Wait, whoa.
Well, hold on.
This morning, and this is the kind of shit that's going on. Yeah. So look at this. Yeah, you see it? And then over here at this one, we've got this crap going on as well. Yeah. And then we come along to this pole here, and they've then done the same here as well. Look at this.
You're talking about, John,
Did you hear that?
What?
Yeah, all those Palestinian flags in Bethnal Green Road.
Tread on them! Tread that all over them! You gotta fight for your right!
Is free speech under threat in the UK, with the rise of so-called non-crime hate incidents, arrests over grossly offensive memes, and the government's online safety bill threatening to clamp down on social media posts? Can you really speak your mind in 21st century Britain?
No, we're going to be going over things that will shock you here, okay? So
I'm glad I live in America.
A 12-year-old Courtney Wright, so a 12-year-old, okay? A student at Blyton School in Rugby, Warwickshire, participated in a school culture day event designed to celebrate diverse cultural heritage, where pupils were encouraged to wear traditional dress representing their backgrounds. They were encouraged to wear traditional dress celebrating their backgrounds. Courtney chose to wear a sparkly Union Jack dress to symbolize her British heritage.
Adorable.
And speech about Britain's history, traditions, and cultural elements. However, upon her arrival, teachers removed her from lessons, detained her in isolation, and barred her from delivering the speech, and eventually sent her home, claiming the outfit, just a Union Jack, violated the school's dress code or was inappropriate for the event.
Just to be clear, she is in the United Kingdom.
In the United Kingdom.
And she probably came from hundreds of years of British descent.
Well, not just that, but on a day where she was instructed to dress in a way that was culturally representative.
Yeah, how else was she supposed to appropriate someone else's culture in this case?
Apparently, yes, she was basically expected to pretend to be something other than British.
You can't win, my gosh.
I mean, if you talk about the shaming, so we're going to go over more crazy incidents of this. We're going to go over why this is happening, like why people are being punished so much for showing pride in their own cultural heritage, and why there's finally pushback to this. And then what I really want to discuss is, because Asmongold went over this and he goes, oh, like they're trying to fast track a revolution here.
They're speed running V for Vendetta.
I actually think a revolution is much more likely in the United States, even though things aren't as bad in the United States. I'd also want to point out here for people who might say, well, the UK has been a uniquely bad country in history, and that's why you shouldn't have their flag on. That's why the flag is so offensive to so many people. And I'd be like, okay, well then you've just been brainwashed. Like if you have an objective understanding of human history, the UK may be one of the most moral players in all of human history. So for some examples of this, The UK literally, long before most countries had banned slavery themselves, and then spent 6 to 10% of their Navy budget, which was the largest part of their military budget at the time, to just police all of the other countries in the world to try to make them end slavery. So it had ships that would go around Africa, and it ended up freeing 150,000 enslaved Africans and stopping 1,600 ships. And if you're like, well, certainly African countries, do not laud the periods where they were Actually, they do. The Woman King movie about that African country that everyone went crazy about, that was one of the countries that they had to keep policing. In fact, they blockaded the ports of that country to get them to end their slave trade. And after signing an agreement with Britain that they would stop the slave trade and the blockade ended, they, of course, within a few years went back to slave trading. But it's not only that. The UK also, when contrasted with other countries like France, gave up most of their colonies voluntarily. And not only that, but if you look at where they had colonies, many of those countries are like developed, nice places to live now. Whether you're talking about Canada, Australia, Singapore, Hong Kong, India, South Africa, if you contrast that with French colonies or Spanish colonies, just way, way, way more ethical. So yeah, you should actually be proud to be British. All that said, though, that is not to say that recently Britain has not descended into a shameful police state.
And we're also going to be going over just like the UK has basically been a police state for a while now. And here I'm going to post videos. And if you're from the US, you're going to be like, wait, the government actually made these ads in the UK?
Your town, your street, your home. It's all in our database. New technology means it's easy to pay your TV license and impossible to hide if you don't. It's all in the database.
These are BBC ads for your TV tax. So in the UK, if you're suspected of having a TV screen in your house, they will tax you. And basically everyone has to pay this now because everyone has a computer screen. And they try to terrorize people into paying this. So your average person in the UK has to pay a pretty high price for BBC, even if they don't watch BBC. So BBC can create the super woke brainwashy stuff it does, like the new Doctor Who's and stuff like that.
So it's as if we had to pay for NPR, like it wasn't just part of our normal, like every slush fund that goes to the US government, but like separately we had to pay for it.
And you had to pay a really high price for it. Yeah.
Oh, God. Like a forced Netflix subscription, even if you hate Netflix.
But they
That's
like
crazy.
they threaten you in these ads. It's really dystopian. You see this and you're like, oh, they're actually a dystopia.
Yes, there's a TV set on number 5. It's in the front room. And they're watching Columbo.
If you don't have a TV license, it won't take us long to find you.
And a lot of people don't know like how strict the UK and its laws are before we go into the other flag stuff. Another crazy law in the UK that a lot of people in the US are unaware of is they are so restrictive in their graphic images laws that you can be arrested for having any graphic images, even if it's consensual, where it looks like one person is being injured. This is including cartoons.
Well, thank goodness. I mean, the only reason this works and doesn't like have every woman in the UK arrested is that apparently it's just graphic images and not written narratives.
Yeah, not written
Because
narratives.
romance novels would be so screwed.
Gray or anything. Otherwise,
Yeah.
you go through Barnes and Nobles and burn it. It would be literally like the one anime where they ban all pornography and
Yes.
burn all the books and everything. But anyway,
Yes.
the next one here. In July 2025, shortly after the Blitton school incident, dozens of pupils at Ornstein Sandwell Community Academy in Odbury, West Midlands, faced punishment for wearing Union Jack badges, stickers, or other accessories during a school event. The students were singled out and placed in isolation, while symbols from other nationalities were allowed. So if you were any other flag, it's okay. But if you were the British flag, you are marched out of your schoolroom
In
and placed
Britain.
in isolation. You could not signal more loudly. You are not allowed to be proud of your heritage. Like I see why people are pushing back finally.
Yeah, this is egregious.
And you didn't know it was this bad, did you?
No, that's crazy. And to be arrested for just saying things like this.
Oh, Simone, we're not even getting to the multiple arrests for the simple misgenderings and stuff like that.
What's so funny though is like the way that this is pictured in narrative dystopias is if you say anything against the government, you know, God forbid.
No,
But
no,
here
no,
it's
no, now-
literally just supporting your country. Your country defenestrates you.
Well, look at it this way.
Okay.
Suppose the UK was under occupation by a foreign power right now.
Yeah.
What would that foreign power, what symbol would it fear the most if it was under occupation by a foreign
Oh,
power?
fair. Yeah. Yeah. Like, so France, when it was occupied by
Uh,
the Axis,
By the Axis, if you had a French flag,
flew a French flag. Yeah. Okay.
you're
Oh.
immediately going to jail, being detained, being
And
isolated.
this is why the colonizer's flag, the progress flag, is flying everywhere.
Yeah. It is under occupation in every sense
It
of the word.
is. It's, oh my gosh. It's, okay. Keep going. Ooh.
You're seeing this.
I have
and
my
when you start to-
popcorn. I'm like,
when
this
you
is
start to think of it in the context of, okay, certainly a government wouldn't punish people for flying its own flag. So if the government is punishing people for flying the British flag, what conceivable reason could it have to do that? Oh, that's not who's in charge anymore.
it is occupied. Oh my gosh. Wow.
In 2024, an Army veteran residing in Preston, Lancaster, was instructed by his housing associate to paint over the St. George's flag design that he had applied to his front door. That actually would look pretty cool. The white was the red cross on a front door. You know,
That sounds
understated.
awesome. I want
Yeah.
our front door to be an American flag now.
Can we do that? Actually, I kind of like that idea.
I'm here for it.
Okay, we'll talk about it.
Yeah.
That he had applied to his front door. The association deemed this an unauthorized modification of his property, violating tenancy agreements that prohibited alterations without a formal approval. So he was forced to remove it. In August 2025, unidentified individuals painted large St. George's crosses on multiple roundabouts in areas around Bromsgrove, Westchester, and parts of Birmingham. Authorities such as the West Mercia Police classified these acts as criminal damage under the Criminal Damage Act of 1971, and they involved unauthorized alterations of public highways. Investigations were launched to identify those who were responsible, with warnings issued that such markings could break the Highways Act and pose safety risks to motorists by distracting drivers, blah, 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 blah. Okay, now this same county that did this, right? Well, first of all, let's talk about like the BBC attempting to cover this up.
Yeah.
So the BBC publishes an article about these titled "Roundabouts Vandalized to Look Like St. George's Flags." Okay, then they do another article, "Rainbow Zebra Crossings Appear in a Resort." So you know that this was also not done with approval because they appear
They
in a
appear.
resort,
Yeah.
right? But they are celebrating it when it's their flag, and it is, oh, somebody's putting random French flags in our.
Yeah. So one's like a little fairy, put it there, and the other one's like vandalism, horrible.
And remember the guy who got mad that people had put up random Palestinian flags all over his town? So this district, I think this was actually the same one that got mad at this guy. They went down and cut down, despite the Palestinian flags remaining up, all of the English flags, and saying that they could be a threat to drivers.
This is so outrageous. Okay. Gosh.
Okay. No, you see,
How do the
UK
government workers who are forced to do this feel? I mean, they must be like, this is creepy.
The UK is currently under fascist occupation.
Apparently.
We talk about the colonizer's flag, the new pride flag. One of the things we always mention, and I just always have to mention this because people miss this. The gay flag meant everyone under the rainbow, right? It was a striated, like, if you look at the original people, like one meant like poetry, the other went like mysticism, you know, etc. They didn't stand for genders or sexualities or anything like that. The new parts of the flag that vandalize and cover up a flag that stood for inclusivity stand for specific groups being more worthy of attention than other groups, being more worthy of rights than other groups, specifically trans individuals, brown and black BIPOC individuals, ace individuals. And this is what we see within the colonizing group. So they're dividing humans based on sexual orientation, based on their ethnic group, and assigning special status, like you being able to get other people sent to jail for misgendering you if you're trans. Do you think that anyone has ever been sent to jail for accidentally misgendering a non-trans person? Absolutely not. This is something that only applies to this community, right? So it is, when we say that they're Nazis, I don't mean like they're acting like adjacent to Nazis or something like that. I mean, they have literally set up an institution where human beings' worth is divided based on their ethnicity or sexual profile. And then they have big rallies like that one where they chant about killing the Jews, right? Like they regularly, when I was in London last, I saw a group, giant group, and I had to tell a group of Orthodox Jews, hey guys, turn around, shouting about killing Jews, walking through the streets of central London. Nobody was shutting it down. You know, when we talk about the Christina Gay thing, when they're like, this is the head of Harvard, and they're like, well, if somebody said kill the Jews, you know, would that be hate speech?
Claudine Gay. Yeah.
Claudine Gay. And she's like, well, it depends on the context, right? Like, and the context is, it depends on if they are from one of the higher class ethnic groups, probably in her mind, which is exactly the way the Nazis operated. Like, this is just Nazism again. But to continue here, in August 2025, as part of responses to the Operations Raise the Colors campaign, local residents in cities like Tower Hamlets in East London and Birmingham attached hundreds of St. George's crosses and Union Jacks flags to lampposts, street signs, and public infrastructure. Tower Hamlets Council and Birmingham City Council mobilized maintenance teams to remove these flags. Remember, they hadn't done this for the Palestinian flags.
Right.
Using the council justified their removals on grounds of routine infrastructure maintenance and safety concerns. But then why didn't they do this with the Palestinian flags?
Right.
You know, why didn't they do this with the pride flags that they're put up without public approval? Why is the BBC lauding this using public money that they're forcing people to pay? God, I just can't imagine the indignity of being forced to pay for a propaganda arm of the government that wanted to shame my culture and my heritage for an occupying presence. You know, like if you had to pay the Nazis every day so that they could go on air and talk about how bad the French were and how aren't you glad that the Nazis are here now running everything.
There are rather a lot of TV detector vans in this area tonight. New, more powerful vans. If you don't have a license, they'll know just where to look for you. And when you're caught, you can now be fined up to £400. The new TV detector vans, they're in this area now.
And when you went to class every day, you would go to a school or a college where they talk to you about how bad the French are and that your ancestors were terrible. But fortunately, the Nazis came here to free you. But you're seeing this, right? It's exactly like they're under occupation.
It's really creepy. It's really creepy.
Okay. Under UK's Road Vehicles Construction and Use Regulations 1986 and related motoring laws, drivers risk fines up to £1,000 and 3 penalty points on their driver's license for attaching flags like St. George's Cross to their vehicles.
Oh my gosh! What?
Can be said to obstruct the driver's view, or incircularly fastened, or poses a risk to safety hazard. This issue was particularly highlighted during Euro 2024 football tournament, where fans were advised to ensure flags did not flap loosely, cover number plates, or impair visibility. And people basically were pulled over. It appears that they were overly zealous in just suing people who had flags on their cars.
Can you imagine this happening in the United States?
Oh, in the US, people put flags on their cars all the time. It's
revolution for real in the United States at that point.
In May 2025, British jigsaw puzzle artist Mike Jupp, age 77, was asked by game company Gibson's Games to remove St. George's flags from one of his puzzle designs as part of a diversity and inclusion drive. Jupp, famous for his I Love series, depicting humorous and chaotic scenes of British life, claimed the request was an act of woke censorship, and it also included removing other elements. He expressed outrage, arguing it suppressed national pride in his artwork.
Good for him.
No, absolutely. Right. This is about British life, right? You have an MP,
back, Puzzle Man.
Emily Thornberry here, tweeting to shame a poor white neighborhood that had put up English flags in their windows. You had news stations complaining that men had put up British flags near like Chinese and Turkish restaurants. They were just putting them up on all the poles, but they're like, of course you need to skip that area because they're, Chinese and Turkish restaurants.
Because these UK citizens would hate to see their national flag.
Yeah, I know a lot of immigrants who are proud of America, right? In fact,
immigrants choose. They choose. I mean, it's more than someone who's born to a country. When you choose to go to a country, I mean, like, most of the people who we know who've won their citizenship are way more patriotic than the average person who was just born here.
Well, I mean, the ones who may have gotten in illegally might not be, but I actually think that this is a good metric for who you should let into your country. Are they the type of country who is proud of your country's flag hanging near their shop? Or are they the type of country who is disgusted?
Immigrant. Are they the type of immigrant who's disgusted by?
Yeah, if they are the type of immigrant that's disgusted by your country's flag, it means they probably don't like your culture and they're not looking to acculturate. So you shouldn't, there's no reason to bring them there, right? Like, why are they there? There's other
if you don't like it, don't stay.
There's other countries they can go to.
Yes.
And if you're like, yeah, but those other countries are kind of, not awesome places to live where people who with their attitudes are in the majority, it's like, well, then what does that mean?
Yeah, what are you so proud of then?
No. It's not what are you so proud of. It's once people of their attitude become the majority of the country, that country becomes not a great place to live. What does it mean about bringing in people with that attitude, right? Like you probably don't want to do it, right? This is, and I note here, this isn't me making some jab at, just like Muslims, for example. This is what I always say to like American Catholics who want to make like a Catholic caliphate in the United States. I go, look at Catholic majority countries. They suck. Like they've got tons of corruption, they're way higher rates of poverty, just terrible places to live, lower birth rates often. Why would you want that? Why would you want that for yourself, right? And so I'm not just taking digs at like, but I will say, I can look at this from the perspective. There are certain Muslim populations that even when they become the majority within Muslim majority countries, they make their areas much less nice to live in. We pointed out in another video on Pakistani's religious court saying that it was Islamophobic to make it so that to raise the minimum age of consent from 9. Or it might have been 14 at that time, but young. No, it might have been 12. It was either 9 or 12. And people, obviously in the West, they don't talk about this, but this is a mainstream conservative Muslim position, right? Like you saying they're not allowed to have this position is you saying that their culture is inferior to your culture. And you're like, well, of course I believe that. And it's like, well, if they're moving to your country and they hate your ways, okay, that means that they want to impose their ways, which may include some of their cultural traditions that their religious courts are ruling on, which can lead to, incidents like, and this is one of these things where people are like, how bad is like what the government is doing in terms of importing people? Obviously, there was the famous case of people being imported from Gaza, literally, who jumped British taxpaying citizens in the NHS, for potentially life-saving procedures for the British citizens that have been waiting for years. And then in terms of the immigration stuff, what's going on in the UK right now, they have rented out on taxpayer dimes over 200 hotels and over 111,000 asylum claims.
I've heard about these migrant hotels. Are they actual hotels, like kind of in New York for homeless people?
Yeah, some of them are like nice hotels. Yeah, and they've spent billions of dollars on this. 8.3 million per day is what they're spending on doing this.
Whoa. Oh, yeah. I mean, that is, as UK citizens are struggling to make ends meet, is
that they're taking money from UK and UK citizens talk about how these people are getting clothing stipends, they're getting food stipends.
Oh, wow.
Why would you, as I say, you cannot have porous borders and general social services. You need to pick one or the others. Yeah. Either you have tight borders and low social services, or tons of social services and loose borders, or at the very least don't accept
tons of social services and extremely tight borders, or the vice versa.
Yeah. And the reason is obvious. If you have both at the same time, or at the very, very least, you shouldn't extend any social services to first-generation immigrants. Because if you have both at the first time, that means you disproportionately attract immigrants that want to live off of those social services.
Of course, obviously. Yeah.
And eventually you get sort of an osmosis where the immigrants who want to come to your country and economically contribute don't come, and the ones that want to mooch off of you do come. And then you get a nightmarish country with tons of knife crime and stuff like that, like you have in the UK.
Yeah, you're setting yourself up for failure. It's not good.
Yeah, so to talk about some of the things that have happened here, Habash Kabuti, a 41-year-old Ethiopian asylum seeker staying at one of these hotels that taxpayers were paying for, sexually assaulted and a 14-year-old girl.
Oh my God.
and then through attempting to force to kiss her. And then a bunch of immigrants and wokies came out and protested the vehicles that were attempting to take him away, even to just go to court over this. They didn't even want him to have to go to court over this. This is why nobody was you can watch our grooming gang video, why nothing was done on the grooming gangs when you know that you're going to be swarmed by protesters, because somebody of some ethnicities are just supposed to live off of the other ethnicities. It is just and right that some ethnicities pay for the existence of other ethnicities, and that they shouldn't face repercussions for crimes. In the same way that if you go to like antebellum cells, oh, well, a white guy grapes a black girl, whatever, right? Like that's normal, he should be allowed to do that, but not the other way around. We are seeing a recreation of this within the occupied UK right now. In Newton Wickshire, there were claims of a 12-year-old boy being raped involving asylum seekers.
A boy?
No, girl. Was this the same people? Oh, no, different people. Mahad Makdoul and Mohammed Kabir. Reform UK Council leader George French accused the police of a cover-up regarding their immigration status. Broader claims in the area. 40% of sexual assaults in London last year came from foreign nationals. Not even like second generation immigrants or something, attacked a ton for saying that they had medieval views. But they if this is what's happening, they do, right?
Yeah.
But anyway, what's interesting about the 2.28, if you just want to talk about like the pure evil involved in what's going on with these hotels, a lot of the money that's going to these hotels is being directly redirected from foreign aid that's supposed to go to Africa, where it would make a much bigger difference.
It's like no PEPFAR, no helping children.
Yeah, they're mad at us for shutting down PEPFAR, and meanwhile they're spending the 2.2 billion of it specifically was redirected from their foreign aid program.
Gosh, that's horrible.
So to talk about some other crazy stuff, Kate Scotlow, 2019, a mother was arrested at her home in Hartfield in front of her children and detained for 7 hours after allegedly misgendering transgender activist Sophia Hayden on Twitter by calling her a man, along with comments deemed harassing. She was charged with harassment and malicious communications.
Wow. Malicious. It's like a whole new level of Karening, like when the government becomes Karen and can arrest you.
Well,
terrifying.
It's not Karen. It's worse than that. You have a group that is deemed a political upper class, and they are what we can only describe as occupiers. Yeah. They fly a flag that stands for a vandalization of inclusivity.
Yeah, the message here really isn't UK is about to have a revolution, because it isn't. It is the UK is occupied now.
The UK is occupied.
This is an occupied country. Yeah.
Yeah. She was convicted in 2020, but it was overturned in 2021. A Christian street preacher in Leeds was arrested under the Sedition 4A of the Public Order Act 1984 after misgendering a transgender woman in a public sermon, referring to her as a man in a dress and using male pronouns. He was detained for 14 hours and also reported to the Prevent Counterterrorism Program by the police. This is Christian belief. Why isn't he allowed to believe what Christians believe? Right? Why isn't he allowed to say what Christians believe? Because it hurts somebody else's, one of the ruling class feelings. They can preach to him. If a trans person was on the street preaching, they'd be allowed to preach. If somebody was on the street preaching about how you should be allowed to be gay and proud and everything like that, they'd be allowed to preach. But somebody's trying to preach Christian beliefs, they're not allowed to do that. Catherine Farrow, a Catholic journalist, was investigated by Surrey police for tweets misgendering the child of transgender activist Susie TV Green after a debate under potential malicious communication laws. The police sought taped interview, but did not arrest her. A teacher in Oxfordshire, a maths teacher, was accused of misgendering a transgender pupil by referring to use preferred pronouns and saying, "Well done, girls," to a group including the student. Police informed the school it constituted a hate crime under the Equality Act of 2010.
Wow. People from just like 30 years ago would think we're completely insane, that we've lost our minds.
Well, it makes sense when you recontextualize that this is a ruling caste that is acting like a ruling caste, and that they have occupied our countries, and that when you go to a school system and it tells you to not be proud of the founding fathers of a country, to not be proud of that country's ancestors, and this school system is supposedly working for that country's government, the truth is laid bare. A new group is ruling your country.
Yeah.
I'm going to skip some of the
egregious examples.
Well, so there's some other, well, okay, we can go into this a bit. The Communications Act of 2003 criminalizes sending messages via public networks that are quote unquote grossly offensive.
What counts as a public network, like Facebook or X or
indecent, obscene, or menacing? Penalty up to 6 months in prison.
Oh, 6 months in prison. Okay,
Yeah,
really no freedom of speech. That is crazy.
And they, by the way, recently there was the case of them not convicting the PDA files who were caught with actual CP of real children who were put through horrible things, but they did send a guy to jail for right-wing memes. So Paul Chambers, 2010, was initially convicted and fined after a tweet jokingly threatening to blow up Robin Hood Airport due to flight delays, which is funny because it wasn't even political. It was due to flight delays, but it was overturned after outcry. In 2012, individuals were prosecuted for racially motivated tweets directed at footballer Stan Cullimore, resulting in convictions for grossly offensive communications. More recently, during the 2024 riots, numerous arrests and convictions occurred under this session, including a man sentenced to 3 years for posting on Facebook to initiate racial hatred or violence, and others for sharing inflammatory memes or false information about immigrants, where they choose what's false and what's not. There's been 999 reports of prosecutions under this. The 2 for sending false messages requires, and remember, this is the type of thing where you could have gone to jail for if this happened in the US. Remember when they pretended like the Hunter Biden scam was not real, like oh yeah, and they reached out to all of these websites and they had them take down all of the stuff. You likely would have been sent to jail if this had been in the US, if you had posted about that, for posting misinformation. Or during COVID, if you post something like, I don't think that this is accurate. Later,
yeah.
I don't know how much math.
So we should feel so lucky that like all we got was shadow banned and our accounts closed and stuff. I mean, like at least we didn't go to jail for 6 months.
Yeah. Then there's the Online Safety Act of 2023 requires tech platforms to remove quote unquote harmful content, including misinformation or content causing quote unquote psychological harm, i.e. anything that people find unpleasant to see. Obviously not all people, not Christians or Jews or
well, their opinions don't matter.
Opinions don't matter, which is so funny that it's immediately true when I'm like, oh, do Christians and Jews count in that? And they're like, no, of course they don't count psychological harm. What are you talking about? If something was offensive to them, whatever. British people, like burning British flags and stuff, they wouldn't care about that. They can fine companies up to 10% of global revenue if they do this. Mandates age verification and weakness of decryption. So it's a relatively new law, but in the 2024, the Rights Act was invoked to pressure social media to delete posts that quote unquote spread violence or spread misinformation. I mean, we know what that means. The Public Order Act 1986 prohibits threatening, abusive, or insinuating words, behavior causing harassment, alarm, distress. Also bans stirring up hatred on grounds of race, religion, or sexual orientation. Of course, this does not apply to Christians or straight people, which you will commonly see online is kill straight men. This is a common thing we see on sites. And I'm sure you can find dozens of UK feminists and stuff like that saying, white male tears and stuff like that. This was a common thing. Of course, nobody ever has to deal with this because, again, we have a sexual, racial, and ethnic hierarchy that they have set up, with, of course, Jews at the bottom and deserving of eradication. Before the 2013 amendment removing insulting Section 5, a teenager was arrested in 2008 for holding a sign calling Scientology a cult in a protest.
This has nothing to do with the. Oh my gosh! So
they're just doing feelings.
You're just doing work for Scientologists on behalf of the government in the UK.
Yeah, and a man from Luton was convicted under Section 5 for disorderly behavior involving shouting offensive remarks in public.
Isn't that like a UK pastime?
Yeah, Mike Overhead has been fined multiple times for sermons quoting the Bible on homosexuality. People said that caused distress. Quoting the
Bible. Oh no.
No, but again, why isn't it a bad to? Why isn't that offensive to Christians that you're doing this, right? Like that causes psychological harm. And then they got the Malicious Communications Act of 1988. So you see, they've been doing this for a while. Criminalizes sending electronic communications to cause distress or anxiety.
This makes going to the UK sound
Woman jailed
scary.
in 2018 for posting rap lyrics on Instagram that reference violence interpreted as causing distress.
Oh, gosh. Okay,
So
so
you see what I mean? The UK is a police state now.
what does it take? I mean, so you're arguing there's no revolution. There's not going to be a revolution. Like what would it take to
It's
change
very
this?
hard to have a revolution in a country like the UK. In the US, it's fairly easy, and I'm going to explain the difference.
Okay.
In the US, all we need for a political revolution is for one party to deny the election results of another party and actually do something about it. So far, Trump will say, I don't believe the election results, but he'll still vacate the office, right? So far, no one has just been like, I am not vacating. This is not, you guys actually cheated this time. And I think there's enough, stuff out there and motivation from both parties, to be honest here, because Republicans were caught cheating in some of the elections in the last election cycle, to actually attempt to cheat and also not acknowledge that they were caught, or that when they were caught that it was enough to sway the election is probably what would happen. So let's go over what this would look like. One side verifiably does cheat. We all see that they cheat. Everybody knows that they cheated. And again, Republicans literally have convictions on the record for doing this. I am saying this to Google AI, so I'm not talking about anything right-wing here, right?
Of course, here I'm talking about Sally Jane, the 64-year-old postal worker who stole like a dozen ballots or something like that. Again, no evidence, especially on YouTube, that Democrats have ever in any way engaged in anything silly with elections.
You're not going to make this ineligible. I'm talking about Republicans here. Republicans, because you can't, again, say whatever you want to say on platforms like this, as my audience knows. So I think this was in South Carolina or something, one of the districts. So we have proof this happens in a few districts or something like that. And one side says, well, that wasn't enough to swing the election in our favor, and we still won. And then the other side says, no, that was enough to swing this in your favor. We're not leaving the White House. That's enough, I think, to get some of, if not all of the military on the side of the person who decides to stay in the White House, because it's so obviously unfair. And then the other side would likely resort to some form of violence. And then you have a civil war, right? That would likely be shut down pretty quickly. And the side that stays in power may decide to say, well, we can't hold elections for a while due to civil unrest or something like that. And then the elections get delayed and they get delayed again. And then it's, okay, everybody knows what this is at this point, right? That is, I expect there is a very high probability of that happening within our lifetimes.
Really?
Well, because we already see both sides in every election cycle saying the election was rigged.
That's true. So you just think it's going to escalate from there?
It is escalating every cycle.
I guess, yeah. Yeah. Okay.
The one of the core reasons I think it didn't happen in this election cycle is because the blowout for Trump was so large.
Yeah. Okay. So when it
but
gets
they
closer,
still try to. If you go on Blue Twitter or anything like that, or like
Blue Sky,
it is now normative that the election was rigged. This is now the normative opinion on their side. Within progressive groups. And if you say this, people won't jump down your throat. People won't be like, oh, you're acting just like we accused them of acting in the last election. Everyone is like, oh, of course. The thing goes something like Elon did it. And I'm like, okay, Elon did it, but Elon's in a beef with Trump now and is like really quite mean to him. If he had on him, I'm pretty sure he would have released it at this point, because this ends up hurting his companies. And honestly, the way Elon didn't do it is, even if you're like, okay, well, maybe Elon and Trump are secretly like, he doesn't want to go nuclear on Trump. Trump would have been fastidious about ensuring Elon got all of the solar credits that he needed in the big, beautiful bill to be happy. He knew Elon had that level of dirt on him.
Yeah.
No, Trump isn't an effing idiot. He's not going to do that, right? So just logically, no, Elon didn't have any information of something like that. But this is a normative opinion within leftist communities when I listen to their content.
Okay, so what would need to happen in the UK? Because that's not how elections work
different
there. Yeah.
Because in the UK, there's not as much vagueness in who's won an election, right? Like the prime minister is chosen by the MPs in the House of Lords, I think I'd say, and that's an easy vote, and you can just go check with everyone, who did you vote for, right? So it's way harder to get a situation of ambiguity like you have in the United States, which means that you're way less likely to have somebody be like, I just disagree that I lost. and have the military go along with that. Secondarily, it's very unlikely because the types of people who are chosen to be prime minister are chosen because they're chosen by the MPs. They're chosen by what is already an elite political class that doesn't really care that much about the average UK citizen. They
Less
care about
accountability.
enforcing the existing aristocratic authority. And that's the way they see it in the UK as well. And so they sort of see themselves at the top of this woke totem pole as the aristocratic authority, even the Conservatives. I mean, that's where you got this new party in the UK, the Nigel Farage party, which, did very well and may do well in the future. We'll see. But it's because the Conservative Party basically stopped being a conservative party. And so you could get a woke fascist revolution in the UK. It would be very hard to, from a governmental perspective, get a right wing. The one way this could happen in the UK, and if you have their ear, you let me know on this one, okay, people? You whisper things, is the royal family. The royal family could create a viable revolution in the UK.
Yeah, technically, yeah.
They technically, on paper, have the power, and this is all you need is to come out with the paper and just be like, we do not believe that the parliament is representative of the people of the UK anymore. You cite things like these flag instances. You cite things like people being arrested for just saying their religious beliefs in a country that is ostensibly a Christian country. It's under the Anglican Church.
Yeah.
I don't know if it's technically still, but the Anglican Church is still under the monarchy is still the head of that. They can say, as my duty was in this role and the role is
in the
head
Church
of
of England.
Somebody is arrested for reading the Bible. There's been, instances of arrested for like praying too close to somebody's house, or
really, King Charles is being derelict in his duty. And
the public, I think, in the large part, would go along with you. Just be like, look, I'm not here
at this point.
Some right wing extremist thing. I want to.
I just feel like there's been such a long period of just false starts and discontent with leadership in the UK.
Well, would you come out as you go, I want to do the stuff that everybody wants to do. Shut down the BBC, right? Like the BBC, clearly you don't want to be paying these taxes. This money would better be going to poor people at most, right? Like we
just
should
privatize it. Just privatize the BBC and then just say like hard reset. Anyone who's in office now doesn't get to serve again. Let's just do elections again. Do over. Clean slate.
Or clean slate, maybe change the voting system or just go back to a monarchy. Be like, look, this is what I would say. Okay, but I was in one of their positions.
Yeah, I know. I feel like actually a lot of the anti-monarchy people might change their mind if they felt like they were getting their money's worth. Like if the monarchy was actually monarchying.
Yeah, I'd go out and say this. I'm gonna be like, guys, give me 10 years. Okay, just
10 years.
10 years.
Well, especially if Prince William took place as king.
Yeah, I'm not going to do anything crazy. Like I'm not here to restructure society. I'm not here to. I want a British society that is more efficient, that doesn't waste your money, that doesn't take tax dollars that should be going to our poor, that should be going to the NHS and paying for luxury hotels for migrants, right? Like we need to be realistic about where we are as a country.
Right.
We're not being realistic about this anymore. And I want to prioritize my citizens. And I think that you get a bunch of protests, but at the end of the day, I think enough of Britain would be like, let's just give it a shot. And be like, and seriously be like, and I am open at the end of this, I'm going to host a public sentiment polling. Okay. If you guys found that your lives got worse under this, you let me know and I will go back to the old system.
Right.
And be like, I am just as uncertain about whether this will work as you guys are. But I think we can all see that the way things are right now isn't working. And you can appeal, and when you do it, you appeal to some left-wing sentiments, some right-wing sentiments. You're like some, like the corporations are blah, blah, blahing, they're putting poisons in your food. The environmental regulations are clearly not being held up in these regions, and you could even be like, look, and if certain groups feel that they are threatened when interacting with normal Christians, as they will, right? Like normal Christians are going to have a problem with some communities, just as normal Muslims are going to have a problem with some communities, right? We need to build, and people can be like, oh no, ghettos, right? But we need to zone parts of the country specifically for those groups that feel they can't be around other religious organizations when they are acting normally. And I think that they like, if you can't be around a Christian reading the Bible, or you can't be around a Muslim reading, from their text, that's a major problem, right?
Yeah.
And I think the people of the UK would go for this. Appoint some Indian or Sikh guy as like your go-to guy who's actually running the management of the country. Go very colonialist like that. People would be like, well, it is a brown person running things who has a funny religion, so we know it's not a Christian authoritarian. So I think that's the direction I'd go, but I don't know if any of the monarchy has a spine anymore. And this is the problem.
I mean, who knows? I mean, yeah, I think maybe if much younger, Prince Charles might have gone for something like this, but now no. It could be that Prince William has it in him. That would be super cool.
Yeah, I think monarchy going in this direction could be a big thing. But if you try to just like revolt on the streets, they're just going to call out the military and kill you.
Not going to happen. Yeah. Wow.
And I mean, the military will begin to have breakdowns after a while, but even if the military has a breakdown, suppose you're winning, right? Like, suppose the revolution is winning. You're like, actually, we really hate being treated as second-class citizens in our own country.
Mhm.
We really hate the systemic discrimination that you guys have implemented. I don't want to live under this anymore. And you start a revolution and you start winning against the British military. Like, it wouldn't happen, but suppose you do. What is every other country in Europe going to do? They're going to send their militaries.
Oh.
Because they
I don't know. After Brexit, I feel like they're kind of like, we washed our hands. You deserve
Oh, no,
this.
not at all. Not at all. If I'm France or I'm Germany and I am seeing a sane revolution in the UK and I'm one of those countries' governments, I am quaking in my effing boots. Because if it's successful in the UK, next it happens here. So they'd say, we cannot allow a mob to overthrow an elected democracy, is what they're going to say. And they'd call it a right-wing fascist, whatever type of group it really is, that's what they would say. And then they'd use that to bring in their own jets and drones and tanks and everything like that. And the next thing you know, you'd be under a European occupation, back to the old system. That's why I always just suggest for my UK friends, get out. They've already won. You're already under occupation.
Yeah, unless you have like the ear of Prince William and maybe King Charles. Get out.
Yeah. Unless the monarchy reaches their duty and saves their country.
You have forever changed the way now that I'm looking at today's United Kingdom. This is an occupied country, just
And
like
Simone,
France, occupied France.
When you were talking to me about this morning, you're like, well, you wouldn't get a revolution there because revolutions don't happen in wealthy countries. And I was like, actually, statistically speaking, revolutions more often happen in wealthy countries. I pointed out that if you look at when the United States Revolution happened, we had an average income that was higher than any of the British colonies, including Britain itself. If you look at when the Civil War started, the South had like income rates that were some of the highest in the world, right? Like,
I mean, but look at the UK now. They're
right.
I guess unless you're a migrant, getting your clothing stipend and your food stipend and your hotel, they poor. So whatever, there's huge hiring freezes in the UK. People aren't getting jobs, and still like their starting wages are like half that, if that, of what you would typically get as a college grad in the United States if you're Oxbridge educated. My gosh. So yeah. Anyway. Maybe you can't argue so well. I mean, obviously, yes, relatively speaking, they're an absolute country, but this was enlightening. Okay, I'm going to go. We have guests tonight, so
I can see why they're doing it. Have a great day, Simone. And love you guys. Like and subscribe, all that nonsense. Check us out on Patreon.
Oh, yeah.
Episodes.
Please.
And God, the episodes have been doing well recently. I don't know if we're like doing worse at them. I guess we'll see.
I think the algorithm liked us for a period, and now it doesn't like us. So if you could comment, like, subscribe, we'd really appreciate it.
Love you, Simone.
Love you, Malcolm. All right, off I go to get Torsten.
All right, and I'll go down in a bit. Just let me know when they get here, and I'll come down a bit after.
Yeah, like no rush, and I'll text you when they get here. No rush.
Yeah.
I learned that pharmaceuticals in the U.S. cannot be named anything like that implies a cure where there isn't. So, Rogaine, the hair product that's for men experiencing hair loss, it's called Regain in the rest of the world. But we can't say that in the US because it can't guarantee that you will regain your hair. So it is called Rogaine instead.
That is interesting. I didn't know that.
Isn't that funny? Yeah. It's really hard to name pharmaceutical products because the FDA has to approve it. One of the things that's really important also, and this makes a lot of sense to me, I mean, in addition to like no false promises or anything, that the products have to be significantly different in name, because if a pharmacist on the phone hears the wrong drug name and then prescribes you the wrong thing, you could die. You know?
Interesting.
Like, yeah, 500 milligrams of like one thing versus the other could mean the difference between life and death.
Like Vaxitril versus Vixitril.
Yeah. So they have to be really, really careful about how they go about doing that. But now it's becoming just, it is so much harder to name pharmaceuticals because, of course, all the good names have been selected and now they're much harder to pronounce. And so we're getting some really wild names. But who knew? Who knew?
All right. Well,
yeah.
I'll get started here. What? It's working. Just open it up and turn it on.